Salvete Jubio Spectatores Optimus. Welcome to Rhodeas. I've probably just butchered that Latin, but it's worth a shot, you know. So this is my very first video on YouTube when it comes to designing or creating any kind of city in City Skylines. I have been playing Skylines for a very, very long time, but I've not actually created any kind of video for it. I typically like to focus on how old cities are when designing and creating my own kinds of cities. And after having living in the Mediterranean for a number of years, I'm very passionate about Roman and Greek kind of history. So that tends to be kind of like my focal point of my cities. And the one thing I always tend to kind of observe in other cities on YouTube from other content creators or people that play the game is that their cities always appear to be very, very new, right? And that is quite nice, especially if you build a North American city or something like this. But for me, I really like having a city with a sense of rich and long history. So I thought with the first video I would start off with one focal point, which is an asset that I created a very, very long time ago, based on the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, which was one of the ancient seven wonders of the world, which was located in present-day Bodrum in Turkey, but at the time it was like a Greek kind of city, like a colony. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to focus on this episode. I'm going to begin building the archaeological district park area, drawing a lot of inspiration from the city of Rome, which was the city I used to live in. So hello any Italians, or ciao. So what I've done is I've looked at photos that I've taken in Rome before, but also looked at Google Maps and seeing how things are kind of set out and organized. And what you'll see shortly is me kind of planning things out, essentially. Alright, so I'm just working out where the mausoleum is going to be built. Of course, it's somewhere in the city center. So I've decided on this area is going to be the archaeological site, the archaeological park area. And I wanted the mausoleum to be somewhat parallel to one of the roads, but obviously I don't want a straight edge. You don't really find that in kind of European, really old European cities. They're built very, very organically over centuries, so I kind of want to avoid that. So it needs to be kind of unusual shapes when I further construct the city. So here I'm just placing down some statues of Athena and just rescaling them because they're going to be flanking the entrance into the mausoleum and the mausoleum gardens, because originally they're too high, so change it to a procedural object, scale them down, it looks quite nice. And now I'm just choosing what kind of gate that I want to go and some fencing to go around, and it needs to be imperial and it needs to look fancy, basically, because it's the mausoleum to one of the greatest generals in Rhodean history. So yeah, it needs to have that kind of that vibe and have been maintained for centuries, essentially. Still not 100% happy with the golden lions at the bottom, which kind of flank the steps as you walk in. So I think I'll probably replace those because they didn't quite render correctly. I'm not exactly sure why when I first rendered them a long time ago. So I'll probably replace those. And now, I'm adding the golden chariots now that need to go on the top. Yeah, somewhat reminiscent of like maybe his campaigns across the Rhodean Imperium. So that's like a nice little touch at the top. And later I'll add the golden eagles, which are supposed to represent like north, east, south, and west, sort of like all encompassing. And now going to add some statues which are going to go onto the first level, which are going to go in front of the frieze or tableau, whatever you might want to call it. Yeah, so it gives it a little bit of depth, and also completely stolen from Civilization 4, which is what I based this building on. One of the Wonder videos from that a long time ago, but I think it looks really good, and I really like it. Originally I did sort, as you can see, I'm thinking about putting it parallel along the road, but I figured, well, this kind of like triangular little bit area, I might want to put in some kind of ruin of some other building that, you know, had been sort of like lost to time and progress and things like that. So it will afford me a little bit of a possibility later to add some kind of other archaeological site of interest. And now adding the base of the mausoleum around, I thought maybe stone or marble at the bottom, but I actually really like adding a lot of greenery. And I thought that would look really nice, and an opportunity to add some junipers or other long, tall trees and plants around the base. So it ties in really well with the mausoleum gardens, which I think will be very, very nice indeed. So now just working out where these plant is going to go around the mausoleum. In a somewhat symmetrical kind of style, which is a little bit problematic because it's not exactly a square. It's not like a perfect square. Now, I don't want things to be completely perfect because, bearing in mind, you know, this is something that was built a very, very long time ago, and many things have changed over the course of like hundreds and hundreds of years. If not 1,000. So yeah, I do want it to look nice and somewhat symmetrical, but I don't want it to be perfect because it will look artificial. So yeah, it might be slightly off center, but you know, that's kind of like the look that I really want to go for, really. So just adding some benches now around the mausoleum gardens, and I went with a stone rather than wood because I thought, well, the stone would really kind of complement the building materials of the actual mausoleum, rather than wood. And also going back to these Garnia I can't remember, lampposts, because they really have this like really old worldy imperial kind of feel and style, basically. Here, sorting out some symmetry issues, trying to resolve those, and then also adding some other amenities that, of course, like tourists and visitors would need. You know, it's not just benches, but also bins for rubbish. You know, we don't want people trashing the area of Aulus, Rhodeas. And of course we need some tourist signs, right? I might have to look on the exchange to see if there are any ones which are better than this. But, you know, of course this is a big tourist site, and of course you're going to need some tourist information boards. You know, who built this, you know, how old is it, who is buried in there, why is it so important, etc. And I also wanted some like fountains as well. Not many, probably just 2 at the entrance, but of course it needs to look somewhat old. Nothing too modern, or you know, but still fancy. You know, they still need to look good. And now I'm just thinking about the columns, and I'm looking at the ceiling now, thinking, well, how many do I need? Looking at the ceiling details, the ceiling kind of squares, I forget the name, to work out how many I need, and I think I need about 9 or 10 of them. But we'll see how it goes, because I need to work out the kind of spacing before I can kind of copy and paste around the other 3 sides of the top of the mausoleum. So here I've sort of decided that perhaps I need around 9 of the columns, so I'm kind of spacing them out, but then I'm realizing now that, well, I'm not really sure 9 is really going to cut it. You know, it's a bit of an odd number, and the problem I'm having now is I'm looking at the top of the door entry at the top here. I'm like, well, I don't really want a pillar immediately in front. I would prefer them like to the sides of each of the door, which means I'm going to need at least, I think, just 1 more pillar ought to do it. So I'm just going to align these golden rails at the top, and just see how many I actually need, and whether the scaling issue is right or not right. Definitely a little bit too short. I'm going to need at least 1 more column, and just close the gap between each column just a little bit more, and then it'll look very, very good, I think. But we'll see how it goes. Let's align these. Yeah, see, that's where I kind of want the railing, is between those you know, those double doors. That's where I want it to be. So I'm using that as a kind of frame of reference, and then I'm just going to move the railing kind of as much in the middle as I can, and then bring in the columns, and then I can kind of move around those and make sure that I've got a nice little bit of symmetry between them. So yeah, okay, so that's the amount of columns I need. However, it's too far on the left. It's kind of overhanging, and I don't want that, so I need to kind of bunch these up a little bit more, so it doesn't look ugly, basically. So yeah, so let's just make sure all these railings are looking good. That's the main thing. And, make sure that the scaling for the lines are quite nice too. Yeah, let's add those at the front. Just copy and paste those. I really like the fact that with procedural objects, you know, you just kind of hold down the H and it'll go to it'll align to the previous height. So that saves a lot of fiddling around, which is always a good thing, because it took me, I think, around 2 hours of playtime to get this whole thing completed and done. So yeah, so I'm quite happy with this thus far. So everything's nice, everything seems to be aligned quite well. Let's put that up here. Lovely, very, very nice. Okay, alright, let's move on to the next thing here, which is the second level up. We've got some kind of artsy thing. I guess they're kind of reminiscent of ramparts, like castle ramparts, you know, the little bits at the top of the wall. You know, they go up and then they go down. So, yeah. But then I'm like, well, I'm not sure the scaling is quite right here, so I'm gonna do a procedural object trick again, and I'm going to just reduce the scale, I think, just a little bit, and then that should be just about right to place at the top in a nice uniform style. So I mean, this looks good so far. Let's see how it turns out. Okay, yeah, I'm very happy with that. That looks good. All right, let's copy and paste. Let's get it in position, and copy and paste again. Very nice, and again, wonderful. Okay, let's just delete that superfluous one. There we go. Very nice. Okay, now we've got to add our eagles representing each of the I guess compass points or directions, northeast, south and west. Let's add these. Wonderful. Happy with this. It'd be quite nice to have some kind of statues. Yeah, let's replace those. I don't like those. Yeah, so let's upscale those a little bit more. Yes, yeah, that looks significantly better. Yeah, sorry, Golden Lines. Alright, I would like some statues on the sides. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, I'll put those here and here, same position. Wonderful. Yeah, don't need this. Okay. Yeah, let's do a little bit of gardening. So I usually start off with smallest to largest. So when it comes to planters and things like this, I'll start off with like grass, and then proceed to bushes, and then, well, bushes or flowers, and then trees, in that order, because I feel like if you start off with trees, you know, because they're so large, it's a little bit more difficult to focus on the smaller things. So yeah, so let's add a few more colourful things. Wonderful. Yeah, that looks good. Bit of symmetry on either side, which is always important, especially for something like a formal garden, which this pretty much is. Yeah, I feel like I need some junipers or some around. Yeah, that looks really very nice there. Yeah. A little bit of colour and some flowers and some extra bushes as well in some of these sections. Wonderful. Alright, so just working on some extra symmetry at the back of the mausoleum here, just straightening out the planters to make sure that they look quite nice. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Just gonna extend the floor tiles now a little bit more so they can like match or complement the fence. Well, they just look nice, basically. Just delete some of the extra ones now. Yeah, that looks fine. I can clean that up later. That's completely fine. Yep. Nope, that works. That works quite well. Let's do some extra gardening around here at the back too. Put in those nice junipers. Copy those little small ones, which are rather nice. Contrast little junipers. Lovely. Okay, so start small with some grass. Cover them all. Perfect, that's looking great. Another form of grass here to sort of kind of contrast, add a bit of texture and colour. Some bushes now. Maybe a few flowers also soon. Yeah, that looks quite nice. I tend to use like a purple, or going with a little bit of a purple accent colour, mainly because that's like the colour of Rhodeas. That's like the accent colour, and the colour also on the flag, which of course is based on the Roman Empire flag too. A few palms, that's quite nice, given that kind of Mediterranean vibe. Also some of these, I think they're Scots pine, I'm not sure, I think there's something else, but correct me if I'm wrong. There's some nice tall pines in each of the corner, bit of symmetry there. Now to add a bit of colour. Yeah, like that a lot, that's quite nice. Yeah, try to make it symmetrical on both sides. Now I was going to go with some flowers around the side, but I thought no, actually I quite like it the way it is, so I'll leave that well alone. Yeah, we need a few more lampposts on either of those sides. Some obelisk lights maybe, some small one, and then this center part at the back. I thought, well, I wouldn't mind like an actual tall obelisk. Now there were taller ones than this one, but I'm reserving that one for Circus Maximus when I get around to it. But that's what I like. I just want a smaller one at the back, which I thought was quite nice. Now I'm adding this kind of overpass, which looks really quite strange, but that's because there was some kind of model error, which I didn't spot when I exported, which led to kind of like two sides of the roof basically just didn't render. I think there was a problem with one of the faces on the actual roof, so I'm kind of just doing a little bit of a emergency DIY here and just covering those up. But I think the overpass bits with procedural objects does a very good job. So I'm just tweaking, bringing in the vertices to cover them up. Yeah, that's good. And also on this side, bring it in very nice. And also the one just above just needs to be tweaked. There we go. Yeah, that looks good, even from afar. Yep, happy with that. So I tried to play with the road here because what I want to do is I want to raise the road. Now, what I probably should have done is sunk this entire area. Because now I've just created more work for myself, but hey ho, that's the way it goes. So I'm going to raise the road up a little bit, because that's what you'll tend to find in these, like, think of like Rome, where you've got, I think it's the Capitale, the road which runs kind of alongside like the ancient forum and the ancient sites, and there's like a drop because obviously that used to be where the ground level was centuries ago in ancient Rome. So I'm going to kind of replicate that. So that kind of drop down is the old city of Rhodeas. And the elevated section around is obviously like the modern day ground level. And here I'm just kind of playing around with like the size of the archaeological area, because I've got a few things in mind. Like a Colosseum and a Circus Maximus, and the Altar of the Fatherland monument too, which I want to incorporate the very Il Vittorio, I think it's called, in Rome. So that's what I want to add later on. And now I'm focusing on like the tourist entrance into the archaeological area. Just thinking back how the entrance is in Rome, near the Colosseum, where you have this kind of like main entrance. You walk up and you have this like security area. So I'm placing down these tents basically like for bag check, and then also trying to incorporate like a queue line, queue rail. Yeah, but I'm not 100% satisfied with this yet, but it's giving me a few ideas in terms of what I want to do in the future. So yeah, I'm rather happy with that. And I think I will continue this in the next video. So thank you very much for watching.